Welcome to another episode of Project Freelance. I am your host, Enagonio. Welcome back to the podcast, you guys. This week, so check it out. Last week, I was looking up, 2019 freelancing job sites. I wanted to see what was new out there. I've been on Upwork since Upwork was Elance. So way back in the day. This is like 5 years ago. It was Elance, and then it got turned into Upwork. And so I was, doing some digging, and I found this website called Solidgigs. And so I was like, let's check Solidgigs out. Basically, it is a mailing list. So once a week, they mail you a list of clients that need video, photo, graphic design, whatever kind of work it is, freelance work. It is sent straight to your inbox, and there are about 350, there's going to be 351 people on this mailing list at the end of this podcast because I'm going to sign up for it. And then there's going to be several hundred more thanks to you guys signing up for it. There's an affiliate link down below. If you guys want to check out Solidgigs at any time during this podcast, please do so. It's absolutely fantastic. Solidgigs was, like I said, created to take freelancers and solopreneurs and put them in connection with the clients directly. So I found Solidgigs, and I found out that it was actually an extension of Millo.co. If you guys have heard, like I said, of Freelance to Founder, you've probably heard of Millo. So Millo is kind of like the umbrella, and underneath it, there's all these branches that go out, and it creates its own little ecosystem underneath the Millo name. And so I wanted to have Preston Lee, the founder, the creator of Millo, on the podcast this week to talk to you guys about not only why he wanted to create Millo, but why he wanted to create Solidgigs. Because as a freelancer myself, I wanted to know why and how it was possible to create something like this, something that isn't just another Upwork or just another Indeed.com, something that's different. So without further ado, I'm going to stop talking and let Preston get into this. But beforehand, I want to let you guys know that he actually just had a new blog post come out about 64 freelance job sites to help you find work and quit your day job. So literally the thing I was looking at last week is basically even bigger and better in this blog post. All curated for you guys, all these 64 freelancing job sites. Go check out this blog post. It's going to be down in the show notes with all the other links to not only Millo and Solidgigs, but it's also going to be links to other affiliate things. Like if you want to sell your photography as stock photography, there's links down below for you. Go check it out. All right, Preston, let's get into this podcast. Thank you so much for taking the time. Tell people your name, what you're all about, and how you got started as a freelancer.
Great, yeah. My name is Preston Lee, and I run a website called Millo, which I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about later. But Millo started as an experiment while I was a student in college. I was putting myself through the last couple of years of college as a freelancer, and so I had a couple of years before that gotten into freelancing as a graphic designer, and was working with a few clients and just started sharing my experiences of what it was like freelancing and how I was finding clients and how I was working with clients, how I was, improving my rates and those kinds of things. But that's how it all started. Is I was in college, I needed some extra cash, and I found some local clients who needed a graphic designer.
And how did you find those clients? Like, where did you go? Were you like walking the streets? How did you find them?
Yeah. Each one came in a different way, and I'm not sure I remember exactly how, but I do remember some of them came through like student connections. Like, a professor in one of my design classes would have someone come to them and say, "Hey, I need someone to do a logo, or I need someone to do whatever, a pamphlet or something," and they would recommend me. And so a lot of it came through sort of professor connections. A couple, I did work for. I did an internship for an agency where I worked with clients, and then after I was done working at the agency, some of them wanted smaller one-off jobs and the agency didn't want to handle it, so I ended up helping them with that. So there was just a few different ways, but I didn't do a ton at the time. I didn't do a ton of like cold pitching, which I've since done a ton of. It's been one of the primary ways I've grown my business, but at the time I didn't do a lot of that.
And what is in, like, what's a part of your cold pitch? Like, talk about what that is for freelancers that don't even know what that is.
Yeah, so a cold pitch is basically what you were alluding to, which is like knocking on doors or picking up the phone or sending emails, just saying like, here's who I am, here's what I offer, and I'd love to work for you and your business. I'd love to have you as a client. So It can be very hit or miss. It's a definite like skill to be refined and improved at all times. But it's at least I've found it's a really great way to find new business. You know, a lot of people frown on it. Like it can be really hard to close a deal that way, but I've found it can be quite successful. So yeah, so basically cold pitching is just pitching yourself without someone kind of giving you permission first.
Right, exactly. And it's a great way to really test yourself as an entrepreneur, even to like put yourself out there and be vulnerable in that sense.
Yeah, definitely. And as a freelancer, I'm always saying you have to be a salesman or a saleswoman. You have to be a salesperson. You have to always be selling, because you never know, what opportunity you might be presented with in which you'll find a new client or potential new work. And so you have to always know. That doesn't mean you have to be like a sleazy salesman. You don't have to be like an insurance salesman with your card all the time. Like, no offense to any insurance salesman who might be listening, but you don't have to be like sleazy and rude and over the top all the time. But you do have to be constantly thinking like, how can I turn this opportunity into a potential new business opportunity? And would it make sense for it? And what will my pitch look like? And, make your pitch your own, like make it human and kind, and whatever your angle is. Like if you're funny, make it funny. If you're serious, make it more serious. If you're about results, make it about results. Like just make it yours, and people won't feel like you're trying to sell them. They'll just feel like you're trying to be yourself.
Yeah, definitely. And for listeners, the last podcast episode I created was actually about how there won't be a next time. Like there may not be another opportunity for you to give your business card to that person or take that photo of that thing. Like you need to realize that every moment could be an opportunity and every moment is fleeting. So you have to grab onto those.
Yeah, totally. And even if there is a next time, like you've now warmed up the lead a little bit, right? So now next time your pitch isn't quite so cold. And when I say cold, I don't mean like heartless. I mean like not sort of warmed up ahead of time.
Yeah, definitely. So what real jobs did you have when you were trying to, create your own work as a graphic designer?
What real job? Yeah, good question. I worked, let's see, while in college, I worked at, a little bit before college, I worked at like a photo studio. Not as a photographer, I was like developing film. And yeah, it was really quite fun. I was selling cameras too, so I learned a little bit about salesmanship there. So that was fun. I worked at a fencing place, like they built vinyl fences. I worked in the shop where I cut up all the vinyl pieces into the right sizes so the teams could go out and install the fences. That was maybe less glamorous, but there's always something to learn too. From there, I started going to school. In school, I worked I worked on campus for a design professor for a little bit as a TA. I worked at a screen printing place where we did embroidery, screen printing, engraving. So there was a lot of design involved there. And then I got an internship, like I said, at a design agency, a marketing agency. And so I did a lot of design I was sort of introduced to web design there, which I fell in love with. So there was always, maybe aside from the fence, company, there was always like this element of creativity and design in what I was working on.
That's awesome. Okay, so let's talk about Millo. Why did you want to create your own site for freelancers?
Yeah, great question. So I started Millo back in 2009, which in some ways was the early days of blogging and in some ways wasn't. It definitely was far different than it is today. I started the site as, like I mentioned before, as an experiment in college. I was a graphic designer primarily. In fact, the name of the site back then was graphicdesignblender.com. It was really long, and I got annoyed with typing it, so we shortened the name later. But it started as a design blog. It was inspiration and how-tos and tutorials, and then also I had this category that was about business, the business of design and freelancing. And what I noticed was I was enjoying writing that content way more, and that content was resonating way more with my readers. People were sharing it more. I was getting way more comments. And I realized I should lean into this. I enjoy it more. Other people enjoy it more when I do it. Let's lean in. So the site ultimately became about the business of design and freelancing, getting clients, raising rates, improving profit margins, all of those things that frankly, as designers, we don't learn a lot about in school. Like as designers, we learn how to design. And a lot of times all of the business side of it is omitted from a design degree, for example. And so my goal was to help people and also bring on other experts to help just explain how to improve your business, how to thrive in business, and not just be talented at creating beautiful things, but also be talented at building a reliable business. In 2015, we changed from graphicdesignblender.com to Millo.co. It's Millo.co. We really, really leaned into the freelancing. Now we talk to more than just designers. We talk to writers and illustrators and marketers and developers and coaches and all sorts of freelancers and solopreneurs. Got a few podcasts. We've got a huge newsletter that we send out every week. We've got a Facebook community. Like now we just interact with thousands of freelancers every day, helping them overcome whatever hurdles they're facing at whatever point they're at in their business to really take their freelancing to where they want it to be.
Question, where did you come up with the name for the site? Why did you change it to Millo?
You know what? I don't really have a good answer for that, to be completely honest with you. And there are things that, 4 years later, things that I love about it and things that I don't like about it. It's hard to know how to pronounce it. I didn't do as much podcasting back then, and so it wasn't as big of a deal. But now it's like, people aren't sure how to say it, which I completely understand. And so the name, though, to really answer your question, it was sort of a nonsense word. What we wanted was like a brand name that didn't mean anything already, that we could then just fill that empty box that was the word with whatever we wanted our brand to be. So what I found was with Graphic Design Blender, I had boxed myself into this idea of only talking to graphic designers, which quickly limited, who we could talk to, what we could talk about. All of a sudden it was like, oh, I'm a web designer. Do I belong here? Or I'm a writer. Someone would search on Google and see how to find freelance clients and land on a website called Graphic Design Blender, and they're a writer. And it's like, oh, is this for me or is this not going to help me? And so what we wanted was something that didn't get in the way of whatever we wanted the brand to become later.
Wow, I like that a lot. The creativity in that alone, like the purpose to like not take something that already exists and make it yours. You literally just created your own thing and built around it. That's amazing. I love that. So let's talk about Solidgigs as well. What is Solidgigs and how is that associated?
Solidgigs it started as sort of a side project of Millo. We, like I mentioned before, we have all sorts of little tangents of Millo. I guess we have some podcasts, which I'm sure we can link up to in the show notes. We have a Facebook group. We have just all these different elements to help freelancers. Our goal, like I had mentioned, is how do we help freelancers the most? And what we were finding as we were talking to our audience, as we were doing surveys and polls and just interacting with people on a day-to-day basis, is we found that people didn't actually know where to find good clients. Where do I find that next job? Like the feast-famine cycle is so real with freelancers because we work on a project, and that's what we love to do. We love to design or write or whatever our forte is. And we get so wrapped up in that sometimes we forget that we need to be also looking for clients so that next month we have work to do as well. And what we noticed was even if people understood that, they didn't know where to look or they didn't have time to look. And so we built Solidgigs first as a weekly email delivered right to your inbox that has solid freelance gigs, meaning freelancing jobs that are hand curated. I mean, our team goes through thousands and thousands and thousands every week of mostly crappy, awful, terrible freelance jobs that you don't want, the kind you don't want. But we filter those all out. And what we include are the 1% to 2% of the very best freelance jobs that we can find online. We searched dozens of job listings, job boards, gig lists. We just search all over the place. And what we do is we cram in, sometimes 60 to 100 gigs in our weekly list, and send it out to our members.
Why did you want to bring in your graphic design and freelancing and create this like these other little tangents like your podcast? Like, where does all this creativity come from for you? Like, do you like have like a huge team around you? Like, how many people are on like the Millo team?
Yeah, those are maybe two individual questions. I'll maybe answer the first one first, which is a lot of my drive and passion and creativity comes from helping other people build a business that supports them and supports their lifestyle. Like, I love the idea of we've had members of Solidgigs and we've had readers at Millo email us and say, thanks to you, I finally quit my job and now I see my family way more and I'm able to travel more, or like whatever their lifestyle is. I don't take responsibility for it in any way, but I'm happy to play a small part in them sort of achieving the lifestyle and work-life balance that they want. And so that's what really drives me and drives our team. So the second question was, what does our team look like? And that is, I'm the owner of the business, but I certainly can't take credit for all the great work that happens. Our team at any given time is between like 5 to 7 or 8 people. It depends on the time of year and what projects we're working on. But, I have someone who manages our blog entirely. He does a fantastic job. His name's Adam. Bilal helps with a bunch of our sponsorship stuff. We have a strong sponsorship model. He also helps with some stuff at Solidgigs and lots of other stuff. Julie and the team there, they curate the list for the gigs each week at Solidgigs. We've got Brandon, who's our show host on Freelance to Founder, which is our top podcast. And just I'm sure I'm leaving someone out to be awful, but there's just a small core group of us sort of chugging away with the goal of helping as many freelancers and solopreneurs as we can.
You, like, back to like schooling, you said earlier that you wish that they had covered more business things in schools. For anybody listening that teaches at a creative school, creative arts school, or somebody that wants to help their students learn more, what do you think they should touch on more in schooling as far as like creative arts go?
What's really hard is like, I don't actually blame the professors, because the problem is, the majority of design students who come through aren't going to be freelancers. They aren't going to run their own business. They're going to go get a job at an agency, or they're going to work in-house at a company in the marketing department or something. And so I don't blame them. I'm not saying like they're evil for not, touching more on the business side of creativity. Their job is to teach the principles of design, to teach, whatever the emphasis is, like design, writing, branding, whatever it might be. They're art teachers primarily, or they're experts in like a trade and a craft, and they teach that well. But the problem happens when you graduate and let's say you don't want to get a job quite yet, or maybe you've had a job for a few years and now you want to go out on your own. You don't have the skill set that maybe someone who got a degree in business, for example, might have. And so I guess my recommendation would be like, if you're a student, maybe get a degree in design or whatever you are passionate about, but then maybe look into like a minor or a double minor or something, or even just some extra classes in business. There's also a million courses online, obviously, that you can find to learn more about business. But I'd say for the professors, like, I'm not sure I can fault them. Their job is really to teach the craft.
But yeah, I think because I have a film degree, and I wish that we had a business class, but yeah, I wish we had done a little bit more about like freelancing, like specifically. And for you, have you done any like mentorships, or have you done any like online classes or anything like that? Or is it mostly just like the blog and that?
Yeah. So the blog obviously is packed with tons of helpful stuff, not just from me, but from people way smarter than me who are growing their freelance businesses or their agencies. We pride ourselves on collaborating with tons of really smart people who are doing really cool things with their own freelance businesses. And then we try to recruit them to contribute to the blog as well. So it's a really diverse blog, and the feedback we get from people is that it's extremely helpful when you're trying to grow your freelance business. On top of that, we do have a few courses. I did a course on cold emailing. Like I said, I've grown the majority of my business through cold pitching via email. But looping back to Solidgigs, we actually, in addition to just the weekly gig list, we have, I think right now, 8 or 9 premium courses from expert freelancers and solopreneurs. We have like a course on selling yourself as a freelancer, and it's like 30 videos long. It's insane. It's a really, really fantastic course. It's not by me. It's by a friend of mine named Bruno, and he is an excellent sales. We have courses on pricing yourself, on pitching, on improving your portfolio. We have interviews with experts like freelancers who have worked with Fortune 500 companies and huge clients. We just have a lot of really cool content inside of Solidgigs as well in terms of courses. If you're ready to not only get better gigs and save time hunting for gigs every week, but also want to know how to turn those freelance job leads into actual clients, we have all the resources right there for you.
That's awesome, man. I love that it's all wrapped up into one thing, and I love that you've created such a diverse little ecosystem around Millo and around your passion as like a graphic designer.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a blast, and like I said, we just thrive on being able to help people really improve their solo business.
And what is something you know now that you wish you knew when you started as a freelancer?
Ooh, I think I wish I just knew more generally about business. Like I know that's sort of a wishy-washy answer, but like I wish I knew a little bit more about like how to build recurring revenue into my business, or how to charge a little bit more, or what profit margins look like, or how to control your profit margins, or improve your profit margins, or just like some of these sort of businessy words that maybe if you're more of an artist, a videographer, a photographer, a designer, maybe you sort of shudder at those business words, those technical words, but like I wish I knew more about those. When I started paying attention to more of that and learning more about that, that's when my business became way more reliable and predictable for me personally.
That was a great answer. Thank you. That's like my favorite question to ask everybody that I have on this podcast, because like all the different answers, and there's no like one answer to that question. Everyone's had their own experiences. And so, yeah, what are you working on in 2019? What are your plans for this year?
We are taking Solidgigs from just a side project for Millo to our primary focus this year. We have over 350 members at this point. We're recording this in January of 2019, so we've got a few hundred members, and we're adding forums to it so that we can keep each other accountable, and that we can, share freelance jobs back and forth, surplus work that we might have. We're adding a bunch more courses and premium interviews and just a bunch of really cool stuff. We're going from weekly gigs to daily gigs. So like we just have a lot planned. This is starting to sound like a really long pitch for Solidgigs, so I apologize, but that is what we're working on. And yeah, we're just hoping to make it like seriously the number one place for freelancers on the internet.
Fantastic. And if people want to learn more about, Millo or Solidgigs or even Freelance to Founder, not only can they go in the show notes, but like where else can they find, like how do they sign up for the mailing list? How do they get involved with these things that you're working on?
Yeah, you can join us on Millo. If you want to join the newsletter, you can go to millo.co/newsletter. That'll sign you up for our email list. We send it out every week. That's completely free. If you want to learn more about Solidgigs, you just go to solidgigs.com. If you want to listen to Freelance to Founder, which is, like I said, our top-rated podcast, you can just search it wherever you find your podcasts. Yeah, does that cover it?
Well, where can we find you specifically if people want to get in touch with you or chat with you a little bit more? Do you like socials and things?
On basically all social media, I'm Preston D. Lee. D as in dog. So Preston D. Lee. You'll find me on Twitter or Facebook. Yeah. LinkedIn.
Perfect. And final advice for people that are wanting to start, getting into the freelancing thing.
I'd say just get started, and you're going to make mistakes, and it's not going to be, but don't give up on yourself. Just get started, dive in, and do your best to learn what you can about the business side of what you're working on, and enjoy it. It's a ride. It's fun.
If you want to check out Millo, head to Millo, Millo.co. Check it out. It's free to sign up. So a membership to Solidgigs is $19 every single month, or $13 if you sign up for an annual contract. So if you sign up for a full year, it's $13 a month. You can cancel it anytime, and there's a money back guarantee. So I would highly advise you to check out Solidgigs. I'm going to do it myself, so you can definitely guarantee that I'm going to be talking more about Solidgigs in the upcoming weeks and months. Now that this podcast is coming to an end, be sure to head down into the show notes and click on that link that will take you to the blog post on Millo.co about the 64 freelance job sites that are out there that will help you stop stressing over not finding the work, and they will help you go out and find the work simply with a click of a button. Thank you, Preston. Thank you, Millo. Thank you, Solidgigs. And go check out the Freelance to Founder podcast. It's great. If you look up freelance on any podcasting app, you will not only find Freelance to Founder, but you'll find Project Freelance, and you'll find many other amazing freelancing-based podcasts. Check it out. I'll talk to you guys next week on the podcast. Thank you for your time. Take it easy. Stay strong, keep enduring, and go create something.